Hello and welcome to Macma Literacy Week 17. So long. This week it's more words from maths, and before we start I'd like to remind you to like and subscribe. This week it's a little bit different because there's no video element, and that's because this is my general vibe this week, just utter aesthetic chaos. Aesthetic meaning the way that something clocks, and that's absolutely fine. It's the weekend. I'm cool with luck in a state, but also you need to be kind to yourself. You need to listen to your own self, to your body, decide to do what's best for you. And the thing that's not best for me this weekend is to put a camera in my face. No, don't want it, not into it. So instead you get a series of pictures of me. So we are about to head into our words from maths. This week it's mean, average, and variable. I'll see you on the other side of the tail. Okay, let's dive straight in, accompanied by me with a small owl. So our first word is mean. Generally speaking, the word mean has plenty of definitions. On this occasion, we mean average. So when we talk about getting the average from a series of numbers, we get a variety of values, we add them up, we divide them by how many. And the reason we do that is to create a number that represents all of them the best. The one that kind of is the best spokesperson for all the other numbers, who's going to represent them really well. So the words mean and average in this sense are completely interchangeable. Now, if you look at my dual code, obviously you can do a different dual code if you want, because a dual code is an opportunity for you to create a little symbol that reminds you of these words. And I've used the same dual code for mean and average because they mean the same thing. And I've done a variety of mean looking faces because of all the faces, it's average that they're mean. So to me, that makes sense. But to you might want to go for something else. You might want to do some numbers or something. It's up to you. So mean is when you add the numbers and then divide them by how many numbers you have. And it also means the same as average. Vivian here is showing you what average means. Average means the same as mean. Absolutely the same. Add the numbers, divide by how many numbers you have. Well, that's all well and good, but it's also very abstract. So let's have a little look of it in practice. Now, if we have 1, 3, and 8 as our values, and we want to find an average of it, we start off by adding the numbers. 1 plus 3 plus 8 equals 12. Now then, we divide 12 by 3, and the reason that we do that is because we had 3 numbers in the beginning, right? We had 1, we had 3, and we had 8. That's 3 different numbers. So we divide the amount that they add up to by how many of them there are, and that leaves us with 4. So 4 is the average number in the series of 1, 3, and 8. Now that may seem confusing because none of the numbers are a 4. You're like, where's the 4 come from? But that's fine. We're just looking for a number that represents these values in the best possible way, and it doesn't need to be one of them. Okay, it often isn't one of them. It's just one that represents them the best. Now, you're going to have a go. So I want you to find the average of 6 and 4. Wonderful, and hopefully you will have got that 6 and 4 added together are 10, and the 10 divided by 2, 2 because there are 2 numbers, the 6 and the 4, that's 2 values. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, so the average there is 5. Again, another example of one where 5 wasn't even one of the numbers, but it's the average. Now this all looks great, it's wonderful at this point, but surely it's not always that easy, and it absolutely is not. Sometimes it's way more complicated. For example, if when you divide them, it's not a whole number. And this means that it's not always ideal to do in your head. Sometimes it's a much more complicated fraction than this, but let's have a look at this. So 5, 4, 9, and 3 added together is 21. But there's 4 numbers. 21 doesn't divide easily by 4, so we're left with that extra 0.25. Doesn't make it any less effective as an average. That's still the average number of those ones there, but it's just less snappy to figure out in your head. And obviously, as you can imagine, as you're dealing with bigger numbers, more complex range, then you end up with some pretty complicated ones, and sometimes you need to use a calculator. But that's all good. That's all fine, as long as you know how to do it. So let's move on to our Freya model. Now, a Freya model is an opportunity for us to explore the definition of something a little bit deeper. So we've got a box there for our definition. You don't need to do it in the form of a whatever this is, grid, boxes. I don't know. You don't have to do it in this form. You can do it with bullet points or a list if you want. As long as you've got mean and average, because they mean the same thing. And definition, you're going to pop down what the definition is. So literally what it is. Characteristics, maybe how you get it. Examples, just put a really straightforward example. And for non-example, the reason that we have non-examples on this Freya model is because sometimes we get mixed up with something similar. So if there's anything similar that you get mixed up with, you put that under non-examples, so it helps your brain to register that that belongs in a different box that's not there. So if you pause the video and do that now. Fabulous. And let's move on to my filled in model. So I've gone for definition. The mean or average is the best number to represent a variety of numbers, not a variety of numbers. Oh, Miss Pamela, what are you doing? This is because it's quite a central number. Characteristics, we find the mean or average by adding the values together and then dividing them by the amount of values that there were. Examples, I've given you an example there, 4, 2, 2 and 4, add up to 12, divided by the 4, because there's 4 numbers, gives us 3. So the average is 3. Non-examples would be picking the number directly in the middle because you think that's going to be the most representative. So average is important because sometimes there will be, say, for example, if I was finding the average score in a class, there might be people with incredibly high scores, might be people with incredibly low scores. Going in the middle isn't going to help unless that's completely balanced. If you've got one person with a really low score, but loads with a really high score, finding the number in the middle isn't going to be representative of all of those values. So we have to do the adding and the dividing to find the one that is the most representative. So let's move on to our next word, which is variable. Now, this one confuses me because the word variable in general means is prone to vary. And in maths, it does that as well. It's like this could be one of lots of things. But a lot of the time when you're using the word variable, we're actually just using it for something that we don't know the answer to. So if you see like an X or a Y, say like 3X times 1 equals 9, right? It's the X that's the variable. Now, in that case, there's only one answer for that X. There's only one thing that could be. So it's not actually particularly variable, but we still call it a variable. So it's important to remember those two definitions for the word variable. In maths, it's the unknown value, which is often just one set thing. It's only when you get into more complicated maths that it starts to become actually variable. But in other areas, you might say, oh, I couldn't possibly answer that. There are just too many variables. There's too many things that could change. But all we're focusing on today is the fact that variable is that letter, usually in maths, that represents an unknown value. So if you could put a definition down here. So definition for what a variable is, the characteristics of it, some examples and some non-examples. Okay, let's see what I've put. So I feel like I should have put that it's often an X or a Y under characteristics, but I didn't. Hopefully you did that. Definition in maths, the variable is the unknown value. This word is used in other contexts to mean something that can change. Characteristics, in more complicated problems, variables are variable, but in straightforward ones, there's only one answer. Examples, 3x minus 2 equals 4. X is the variable, even though there's only one answer. And some non-examples are in 3x minus 2 equals 4. None of the numbers are variables. Only the x is the variable. It's only the one that we don't know the answer to. So just give yourself a second to read over that and make sure that you feel confident in what a variable is. And let's move on to our spellings. So we've got the same dual code for 2 of our words today. I didn't even mention the other dual code. I put it as a question mark because we don't know what the variable is. It's unknown. Okay, so let's start off with mean. If you could write mean for me, please. and average. And variable. Excellent, and let's see how you did there. So mean, it's quite straightforward, but it's the EA, it's not a double E or anything. Average is age. And variable has the I in the middle and it's able at the end, A-B-L-E. So look at them, try and memorise them. If you got all those right the first time, you can relax. Otherwise, if you cover up your first spellings and give it another go. So, mean. Average. And variable. Okay, let's check those spellings again. Having a little look at them, seeing if there's anything that's still tripping you up there. Again, if you've got them all right now, you're welcome to have a little relax while we move on to the final round of spellings where people are going to cover their previous attempts and give mean a go. So if you could write mean. If you could write average. And variable. Wonderful. And now it's just a matter of filling out our definitions. So if you could write each of the words with a definition next to them and a dual code of your own choosing. So you might not like the average mean faces. That might not be your thing. Average and mean might spring a different image into your mind. If so, pop whatever you think is best representative of each of those words into the dual code section to help you to remember, and the definition, of course. And wonderful. As usual, if you could like and subscribe and be a pal and all of that. And I will see you next week where you might see my face or I might just give up on my face entirely. Have a lovely week. Goodbye.